Hey everybody, welcome back. Wayne here. I'm going to talk about reminders again this week. And the reason why is because that we know from our research and experience of doing this for 17 plus years now, that reminders are the things that trip couples up more than anything else and for the longest period of time. And the trauma experienced by a couple upon the revelation of betrayal trauma, you know this already, it's no small matter. And it creates this emotional firestorm that has to be dealt with. So many couples try to sweep it under the rug or deal with it on their own. And what we find is that it just doesn't go away. And the biggest reason why that I know is the reminders and the triggers that happen. To be sure, during the initial stages of recovery, you got to get to the truth. And hopefully, in best case scenario, you get to the full scope or the truth of what happened in an affair within the first 2 to 4 months. Hopefully by then, the whole truth is out. And for the hurt spouse, the many losses that have been incurred along the way have to be grieved. It can be overwhelming. And that's why I tell couples a lot of times, set some time every day to grieve, whether it's one breath or an hour, to intentionally grieve whatever you're feeling and whatever the loss that's coming up for the day. And I think it's really important to begin to identify, list out what those reminders, what those losses are. You heard me talk about this, 4 to 6 weeks ago. But the loss of self-confidence, the loss of dreams, the loss of trust, the loss of safety and security, and that list goes on and on and on. I believe that identifying those losses, those reminders, those triggers is a stage that really should not be avoided, because the more you avoid it, the longer it's going to last. I know it's painful to do that work. It's hard work, but I think it's necessary work so that you do get to the other side and you are able to find ultimately that life of meaning and purpose that we all talk about. And just like any loss, we have to grieve. And you know the stages of grief are anger and bargaining and depression and loss. And you come back around and you circle through that many, many times before you get to the place of acceptance and meaning. And the thing that I've seen from doing good grief work, it helps, but it doesn't resolve the issues of reminders. Long after affairs have ceased, long after there's been good recovery work going on for the individuals and for the couple, reminders can still happen and they can come out of nowhere. And one thing I've learned recently, very recently, is that a lot of times the unfaithful spouse does not believe that the betrayed spouse believes that they're doing good work, or they believe that they know the whole story. You've got to separate the story from the reminder. Reminders happen. Think about it this way. You're walking through the grass, you see your garden hose over there, and for a split second, you think it's a snake. That's our brain and the way our brain is wired to protect us. In many ways, reminders are like that water hose over there in the grass. They may not be real. They may just be a memory, but they're not causing any physical threat right now. But for a split second, we get triggered. And when the betrayed spouse has a reminder like that and shares it with the unfaithful spouse begins to believe, they don't believe me. If they believed me, if they believed that I was doing good work, if they believed that I was telling the truth, that I was doing the best I could, they wouldn't have any reminders. And please, I've checked this out recently with several couples, and every unfaithful spouse has told me the same thing. If she believed me, she wouldn't be having reminders. And I want to dispel that belief right now. That's not true. Now, hopefully you've done good work and the truth is out and you are telling the truth and being honest and being transparent as you can be. She or he is still going to have reminders. Because what happens when you don't think that they believe you, what you end up doing is explaining or justifying. And even if you're just explaining, it will sound like justifying possibly to them. And really, I can't say this loud enough, often enough, strongly enough, is that empathy is the fix, if there is one, to reminders. To be able to say, honey, I am so sorry that you just had that reminder, whatever it is. That must be really awful for you. Just 2 or 3 sentences like that can nip that reminder in the bud. And once it's met with empathy, you'd be surprised that they may not have that reminder again. They might have others, and you meet them with empathy and compassion, and they all eventually will go away. But there is no amount of explanation or rationalizing, anything like that, that is going to help with those reminders. They can do a lot of this work on their own, but for you to step in and help them with empathy and realize that by and large, they believe in you. They're still here with you. If they didn't believe in you, they wouldn't be there. But they do believe you. So separate this idea of the story and the truth from these triggers and reminders that will happen for a season. Hopefully no more than a couple of years. And I know that sounds like an eternity, but they do get better and better and weaker and further apart as they're met with empathy. And if you've watched any of Rick's videos, you probably have heard him talk about the greatest distance known to mankind is the 18 inches between our head and our heart. In fact, what he says is that it takes up to 7 years for truth to move from our head to our heart. But for some strange reason, it only takes a lie about 3 seconds to travel that same distance. And at some point in the relationship, and it doesn't have to be after all the reminders are taken care of, because they may happen for quite some time. But at some point, both of you have to come to this point where you decide to focus on something else other than this betrayal trauma. You have to decide that this is not the event that I want my life or my relationship to hinge upon. It's not going to control the rest of my life. There has to be a conscious choice to move beyond it, to truly recover from the affair, and then really to see what's possible for your future, both individually and as a couple. And I want to remind you that restoration is not about going back to the way things were. Very, very few couples want to go back to the marriage that they had. And sadly enough, that's gone. And maybe that's cause for celebration too, I don't know. But true restoration is about the possibility of something new that you get to co-create together. And it might be incomprehensible right now, but the fact is that your marriage or your relationship is absolutely possible. I could introduce you to many, many couples that will testify that post-affair marriage is better than it ever was before, and that is shocking to them. I hate to say it, but I might need a parade permit to introduce you to all those couples that have told me that over the years. One of the things I want to ask the both of you to do is have a conversation about reminders, about this cycle, this dance that I see so many couples get into. If you're the betrayed spouse, ask your unfaithful spouse, do you think that I believe that you're trying, that you've told me the truth, that you're working a good program, something like that? If you're the unfaithful spouse, ask your partner if they believe you, if they believe in you, because you might need to hear those words. Yes, I believe you and I believe in you. If I didn't believe in you, I wouldn't be here. You probably need to hear those words. And then ask, well, why do you have these reminders? I've assumed that it's because you don't believe that I'm working hard, that I've told you the truth, that I'm doing what I need to be doing. And hear the response. Now, if you haven't told the truth, if there's trickled truth coming out of you for weeks and months on end, it's going to be hard for them to believe you. But if you've done a good job, you need to hear that they believe you so that you can begin to separate the story, the truth, from the reminders. And either way, I want you as the unfaithful spouse to write down a list of reminders that your spouse could have on any given day. Just write them down and hopefully get to at least 40. Because if you're brand new at this, if it's just been a few days or a few weeks, probably everything for your spouse is a reminder, and you need to know that. One of the reasons why I love this exercise is that you create this list of reminders that your spouse may have, and then you read it to your spouse. And as you do that exercise, it will be easier for your betrayed spouse to think they are working hard. They are really trying to understand what it's like for me. And then it will make it easier for them to no longer to choose to be a victim. And I don't think anybody chooses to be a victim, but they can make a conscious choice to not be a victim, especially as they really get that you get it and that you're trying to be a safe person for them. You know, what I've seen over the years is that we all have to work out our own recovery. We have to do our own recovery work. We have to do some couples work. We have to do more of our own work than some couples. That's the way I've seen it work the best over the long haul, over the last 17 years of doing this work. As couples do that, they can begin to find that life of meaning and purpose. Most of the time, they find that together. And it's my sincere hope that both of you will one day see the opportunity that the worst thing that ever happened to you will eventually, quite possibly, become the best thing that ever happened to you. And if you haven't attended an EMS weekend or the EMS online program, one of the things I highly, highly encourage every couple, if you've done some individual work, awesome. But if you haven't done some couples work around this yet, I really think today is the day. I invite you to go check out the EMS weekend at the Affair Recovery website under the Programs tab. After the completion of this weekend, you'll walk away with not only a protocol for reminders, but a plan on how to minimize any future collateral damage. New life really is available for both of you, even in the toughest, darkest of times, in this situation specifically. I have couples every day that survive. If they didn't, I wouldn't be doing the work I do. And the Affair Recovery programs are just the best that I've ever seen. So thanks for joining me again this week. I'll be back again soon. Until then, stay safe and healthy.